Can we talk? It's important. And last month, the local scene invited both principals and adjustment counselors from Pembroke and Silverlake Regional High Schools onto Can We Talk? Our discussion series for insight into what life has been like for students and faculty over the last 2 years.
Hi, and welcome to Can We Talk, a discussion series of the local scene of PAC TV. Today, we're looking at the mental health of students in our school systems and the effect that the pandemic and other stressors in our society have had on them over the past 18 months. I'm Melissa Matinzi, your host. My guests today are Marc Talbot, principal of Pembroke High School, Rachel McGowan, adjustment counselor from Pembroke High School, Dawn Nickerson, adjustment counselor from Silverlake Regional High School, and Michaela Gill, principal from Silverlake Regional High School. Thank you all for coming. I think this is going to be a great discussion. So to start off, can we just set the scene for where we are, what we've been for the past 18 months and where we are now in regards to education and mental health and the students in the schools? And Marc, we can start with you.
So obviously, for the past 18 or plus months, our students have been learning in a pandemic, and that started back in March of 2020, meaning we were completely shut down and doing the best we could remotely, switching to a hybrid learning model last year where we were in a variety of models, whether it was remote, in person, or something in between. This year, fortunately, we are back to being 100% in person every day with some, certainly some precautions in place, masks being the most prominent of those precautions. But we are inching our way back to, what I want to call the old normal. We're getting there slowly but surely, for sure.
And Rachel.
So I think that a big piece that we've learned from everything in the past 18 months has really been around the students' desire to be in school and how much they have learned to appreciate that in-person learning that they might not have had before. They're really enjoying getting back to their old routines of extracurricular activities and sports and just seeing their friends on a daily basis.
And Dawn, what have you seen?
I actually really agree with Rachel in terms of having the kids get back to some kind of a routine that feels much more normal for them. So they like having opportunities to be engaged in clubs and, all of those other extracurricular activities. So that's been, I think, really great for the kids this year.
And Michaela, from your viewpoint.
I think back to even a year from now when our students were only, in the building part-time. Mm-hmm. We didn't see our entire population all at once. The lunchroom, for example, students were sitting 6 feet apart. They couldn't talk to their friends. And it was very uncharacteristic of a school setting and what we always hope and strive for in terms of student connection and relationship building. Just being able to be back full-time in person again has been a huge difference for our students and for our staff.
Excellent. So now that we're getting back to this normal and we're inching our way back to what it used to be over 2 years ago, mental health has seemed to be a topic that's been coming up a lot in discussions with the school boards, the school committees, the schools themselves, and the families. Prior to this, it's always been like one of those taboo subjects that you couldn't talk about really in public because there was always a stigma attached to it. So I'm wondering if you've seen or experienced anything now as opposed to, say, about 2 years ago before this all started, that where it's a more comfortable situation to talk about with students, or is there an awareness that's building about this? And Michaela, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I think there's a safety in numbers, right? That where prior, like you mentioned, it was more taboo to talk about mental health. And while I think school districts were taking the right steps in addressing mental health concerns with our students, I'm not sure that our community was as involved or as active in that process. And so I think now that we have had a shared experience with some pretty significant trauma and setbacks, that it's becoming more of a focal point, both for educators, for community members. There's more funding available. And so it's no longer just a few individuals being impacted. I think we're seeing widespread impact, and that's encouraging to others to get involved and try to be more supportive.
Dawn, what have you seen as an adjustment counselor within the school?
So there certainly are students who struggled with emotional issues prior to the pandemic, who I think were pretty vulnerable to some of the effects of the pandemic. And then I think we're also noticing that there are just students who you may not have seen in the adjustment counselor's office prior to the pandemic, but who are experiencing a lot of other stressors now. It's been, on the one hand, great to open up the conversation and have it be less taboo to talk about, but there are a lot of students who are just kind of struggling with the effects of, the stress, anxiety, and grief kind of related to the experience that we've all just shared.
Rachel, what do you think?
I agree with everything that Dawn has said. I think also just the normalization that we've had around mental health and seeking supports has been a huge benefit to the work that we provide in the schools. Students are really much more open to coming to talk to us and open up about whatever struggles they might be having in their home or in their class or something that one of their friends might be experiencing. And so it's really been helpful to be able to reach a broader population of students within the school.
So Marc, are there ways that you're reaching out to families to open that discussion with them?
Absolutely. I'm really proud of our support staff, as I'm sure Michaela is as well. We are fortunate to have 2 adjustment counselors. Rachel is one of 2, and a robust guidance staff as well. And so we are communicating with families on a regular basis. We're providing supports and resources for families who are in need. I think one of the challenges of the pandemic are the demands that are placed on a lot of those external private care options, and those are really drying up quickly, and so that is falling back on the families primarily, and then on the schools. We're doing a lot more outreach with families, making sure that they have the supports and the resources that they need to support their own children.
So we created something similar actually when we first shut down in the spring of 2020. Dawn worked with our counselor staff, and they created a resource for parents and for students to be able to access, because while many people are comfortable reaching out to advocate for themselves, we recognize that a lot of students or a lot of parents might be a little bit more hesitant for fear of being judged or treated differently. And so we wanted to have an outlet for them to find the resources that they need so they would feel comfortable reaching out to our counselors afterwards. And that what started off as like a 2-page document quickly grew throughout last school year, and it remains available to our community on our school website. So it's a landing point. The hope is that sort of lures them in to then feel comfortable to reach out to them directly. So that's one step that we've taken, and I know other districts have done similar things, just providing resources, whether it's online, through principal communication, through social media platforms. That's a neat way to try to connect with students as well, to provide information to them.
Our guidance department, we have our own website, and so there are also articles that I will sometimes forward to the guidance director to post on there. Our guidance department has their own Twitter feed, so they also tweet things out. So, we try to use the platforms as well that we know that kids and families are using to try to get that information to them. And we happen to use a lot of Google products at our school, and so the other adjustment counselor in the building and I started a Google Classroom last year. So when we're working with kids on coping strategies and that kind of thing, they can access those things on the Google Classroom as well any time of the day that they might need them, because they're in school until 2:00 in the afternoon, but there's still a lot of hours left in their day that they might need to reach out for some support. So both having some asynchronous material available for kids that is skill-based, and then information available to parents about where they might be able to find resources, or some of the things that we've been trying to kind of keep up to date as well.
Rachel, did you?
Oh, I was just going to say another really great innovative thing that we've done this year. We had the ability to have a certified therapy dog in our school.
Thanks to Rachel. Thanks to Rachel. She is a certified handler.
So I have a 2-year-old golden doodle named Bauer, who is a certified therapy dog through the Alliance of Therapy Dogs. And he has been coming to school about 2 days a week. And it has been amazing to see the brightness that he brings and the joy to both the students and the staff. I have one student who runs up to my office every single day asking me if Bauer the dog is going to be here today. I brought him into a classroom before. It was an Algebra 2 class, and they were having an exam that day. And I brought him in just to walk around and bring some joy to those students, to relieve some of that stress that they might have leading up to a big assessment. And it has been amazing to see the stress levels just decrease. You can see it in the students' faces. You can see the happiness through the masks, and it is just wonderful.
That must be so much fun for them.
It is.
And
It
for the
is.
staff too.
Oh,
I'm
the
sure
staff,
the-
yes.
I was going to say
Yeah,
the staff is in on that. Fairly
The
soon.
staff constantly ask me and email me, so can we have Bauer come to our classroom today? But yeah, it's also been a great way to have students who might be a little hesitant in coming to talk to the adjustment counselor for one reason or another. They might have had a negative experience with a social worker through the Department of Children and Families, or through a previous therapist that they might not have gotten along with. And it's been really nice to have that avenue to be able to build that relationship with students based solely on a dog. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, Bauer has to go for a walk. Let's take a walk outside. And just having those not face-to-face conversations with the student where it's side to side, and they're able to open up so much more and so much more quickly when you have a dog there that they might be sitting on the floor petting, or taking out for a walk and talking about what he's sniffing. So it's just those little things that have really been great to see this year.
Must be like the anxiety level for everyone in the
Yes.
school must come down.
Yes.
Like 20 points on those
Yep.
things, Mark.
He's here twice a week, and sometimes 3. But and Rachel, certainly in our goal is to have Bauer here every day. But that's a gradual process. And just a quick anecdote about that. So this week, I had the pleasure of doing lunch duty outside with our seniors. It's been a glorious spring outside for sure. And Rachel came out to fill me in about a student who had been struggling that day and just give me an update. And she brought Bauer. Well, we could not have a conversation about that student because the entire lunch patio came over to Bauer, right? So we had to find an alternative place to have a conversation. So again, I'm very grateful to Rachel. She embarked upon this initiative, I want to say 2 years ago or so. Thankful to our school committee and for our superintendent for supporting that, because it's a huge help. It's excellent. But now in the world of mask breaks, we're outside now twice a day at least. And a lot of our staff and a lot of our students, instead of standing still on a mask break, they'll go for a walk around the building and do a lap with the mask off, and they come back inside. That kind of mindfulness type of an activity, we see it quite a bit during the course of our day. We'll have teachers bring their students out there even when it's not a mask break. It's not a mask break because I think they've seen the benefit of that. So.
Yeah.
And I think that's forced us to restructure how we, schedule things as well. Our lunch has changed. Pre-COVID, we were cramming 300 kids into our cafeteria each lunch wave, and we wouldn't let them leave. And now we've opened up our library, the courtyard is open, so we've given students other areas to go so that they can have the kind of break that they need, right? So for some, that is sitting at a lunch table with their friends, catching up. But for others, it's a quiet corner of the library or a stroll outside through the courtyard.
I actually have always been a big advocate of taking kids on movement breaks or doing walking meditations with students. I've used, library conference rooms in the past when the weather wasn't great to get outside. So I think anything that I can do to kind of help the students find what's going to work for them. And for a lot of teenagers, it's not kind of just sitting still. And we have a bridge program at our school, and so we do a lot of kind of intensive support with kids who are coming back to school after having been out for long periods of time at a hospitalization. And so I do get to be pretty creative in kind of how I'm trying to meet the needs of some of those kids, and those strategies have come in really handy for lots and lots of students.
With the kids, you also have the connection to the staff and also to the families. So do you see a role offering more support to the staff, since they're the ones who basically see them on a day-to-day basis more so?
Yeah, we have run a series of PD offerings for our staff, even prior to the pandemic, incorporating mindfulness techniques within the classroom. We've actually offered a lot of teacher wellness PD offerings as well, so they're taking care of their own mental health and well-being, because that really needs to start there, So, and again, Rachel and Holly have been in classrooms, visiting with classrooms and working with teachers to give them tips and strategies. I think if there is a silver lining with all this, is that there is this common bond now, right? A lot of our staff may be experiencing the same sense of isolationism that our students were, and certainly their children may be going through those same struggles. So we have seen an increase in empathy in our staff and an eagerness to really support students. And there's always been an eagerness, but I mean, this part of the student's learning profile now is so important and so common, and their recognition of it and through their own lifestyle or their own life experiences, or through the training that we've offered at school, there's a real increase in an awareness of that.
We're giving ourselves as educators more creative freedom than ever before, and more permission to think outside the box in how we support our students and how we connect with our communities. And I think that starts with every teacher in the classroom, but it goes right up to our school committees, allowing us to, get creative in how we support.
Is that a little overwhelming at times also, to try to balance giving all that support and trying to find innovative ways and to make sure that you're touching all the people that you should be touching, but also those who may not show up as needing help? Because I think that's an issue that comes up sometimes, is you have students who are very successful and people just assume that they can handle it because they're handling it, but inside it's not going well at all.
We've partnered with Panorama, and we'll be in the next couple of weeks surveying students across our entire district, and that will give us a sense of where everyone rates in terms of their social emotional well-being. And the program will allow individual teachers to evaluate their classes. They can take a look at their period 1 class, for example, and get a breakdown of where are the higher needs for that class to get a sense of how they're feeling. They can break it down by topic, morning classes, afternoon classes. So it's pretty fascinating. So we're excited to roll that out. And I know there's similar programs being offered across other districts in the state as well. And it's an opportunity to get a baseline for our students, because I think, Don and I were talking about this earlier. Part of determining what our students' needs are is figuring out what their baseline is. And for our freshmen and our sophomores, we don't know them pre-COVID. We don't know them pre-pandemic. And neither do their, middle school teachers for that matter. So it's difficult to try to gauge what are your needs, and are those needs different from 2 years ago? Are they greater needs? Are they the same needs? So that I think is a difficulty for schools right now.
They weren't able to tour the schools. They weren't able to connect with the teachers to establish a relationship with them. And so now to kind of start all over again, it must be daunting.
It's interesting. Rachel and I were talking about this really just this morning, that because of the shutdowns and the lockdowns, so many folks relied on social media to communicate with one another, or Zoom or Google, and that the lack of interpersonal connection, we are seeing the toll on the other side of it now, right? We've had a lot of social media, negative social media interactions between our students, more so than we've had in maybe the past half dozen years. I feel so a lot of it was back to 2010 when it really became a thing, and we had to really, teach norms and how to utilize these platforms appropriately. There has been a regression there, particularly with our 9th and 10th graders, and those struggles are real for sure, for all of us, for them, for us. Trying to bring everyone back to understanding the importance of interpersonal connection and communicating with social media in an appropriate way.
So it must be training and talking with the students as well, saying that it's okay to not be connected. And I always, as a parent, I see the flip side of that is that they're using Google at home and they're always connected because it's a classwork. So it's kind of like, well, where's that balance? But you must see that with the students as well.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think that a benefit to our school is that we oftentimes don't get service in many areas. So I think that while that can be a struggle in some classrooms because they don't necessarily have access to their phone for whatever reason academically, they also don't have access to that social media. And so it is that nice break in the day that they can have and not have to feel the anxiety of, I need to respond to that person. I need to check and see what that other person is doing. And I think also the mass breaks have been a great way for teachers to develop the relationship outside of the academics with the students, because it is a less structured time where they can start building more of a relationship and talking about different interests that a student might have. Whereas before, they spent that entire 50 minutes really going on whatever topic they were talking.
Yeah. Do you see that making a difference in terms of being able to talk about the pressures of what's happening with the students and the teachers to make that connection, be like, yeah, it's okay. We're all in the same boat. I feel what you feel, and that like they're sharing stories more so with each other and creating like a support group within the class.
The kids are talking about it a lot from what I can see. I mean, they certainly are engaging with me in conversation constantly around what it just feels like to be in school. So some kids are really struggling with the fact that everybody's still wearing masks. Some kids are just feeling the overall stress of the building, and that it was quite an adjustment, I think, for everybody at the beginning of the year to all come back. So they are talking about what that experience is like for them. And I do think that they sense that teachers also have had their own varying levels of stress kind of related to what's happened. But, it's interesting. I was listening to Rachel comment about the phones, and we also don't get great service, but the kids find all sorts of ways around it. It's magical. But I feel like the anxiety works both ways. I feel like they, number one, feel a lot of pressure to respond immediately to a post, but they also use it as a way to escape when they're feeling anxious, right? And they will kind of, it's an avoidance strategy. So I feel like the technology can really hamper the kids figuring out just how to sit and cope with anxiety for 20 seconds and realize that you're going to be okay. They instantly want to be able to get away from that. And so whether it's picking up the phone or responding to something immediately, they're using it constantly.
I think some adults are. I think we're all using 100%. It as an escape mechanism to deal with the issues, because it's not just the anxiety at school, but the at-home structure. If there's food insecurity, job insecurity, housing insecurity, that the individual students are feeling, and they feel like they have to carry that burden.
I had a teacher refer to it as her brain break. I walked into the teacher's room and she was sitting playing a game on her phone and on her prep, and she just looked at me and said, I needed a brain break. And I said, yeah, do what you need to do, right? But just kind of finding 15 minutes during the day to not kind of be feeling under the pressure of, what the rest of the day was going to be like. What is the place where distraction is an appropriate response to your stress and anxiety, because it's going to get you through that moment, and then when you might want to use a cognitive strategy or when you might want to use a physical strategy, and really kind of talk to them about distraction, just one place where you can kind of go to for some relief from anxiety, but that there's lots of other tools that you can use, so that I can't just ask them to stop using something as a distraction if I haven't offered them something else.
Right.
So it's a much larger conversation for sure.
There's good stress and bad stress, and good anxiety and bad anxiety, and how sometimes when we have anxiety, it's not always a bad thing, because it helps us to prepare for an exam or to get your paper written in a timely manner. And I think that starting with that, it helps again to normalize to students that sometimes it's okay to feel stress, and there are ways to go about dealing with that are positive and negative. And we can't, like Donna's saying, we can't take away some of those negative coping skills without providing them the resources and the support to have positive ones.
So, and then part of that, I'm wondering, Marc and Michaela, do you find yourselves creating more relationships, that parents are reaching out to you more?
Yeah, and again, I think our schools have done a great job, even pre-COVID, of providing support to families when they need it. I think anecdotally what I'm experiencing more so in the last year and a half than ever before are the requests from parents for help with things like financial concerns, help with athletic fees for tickets to events, more so than ever before. And I think it's a testament to, the job losses and the insecurity that we've seen across our communities and that impact. And I think they seem hesitant to reach out for help. And sometimes those conversations open the doors to other conversations, and you learn it's not just a financial hardship right now that they're experiencing, it's a mental health hardship that a member of the family is experiencing. And that provides us an opportunity to really see what we can do to help them, whether it's connecting with a counselor, an adjustment counselor, or finding resources outside of the school for them.
The parents aren't necessarily reaching out to me for those supports, although certainly some are. But we have mechanisms by which parents can communicate with the school to express these needs and these concerns, certainly. Those pathways, they are busier than they had been in the past. Those pathways existed certainly prior to the pandemic, but yeah, there's been much more traffic in those pathways, certainly. Again, financial reasons. For instance, lunch and breakfast this year remains free, and our cafeteria in the morning before school is as crowded as it's ever been with students looking for the breakfast. And not all of them need the free meal, but they're going to certainly take it. But we also know certainly that there is a population of our school community that certainly needs that meal. Those things have existed before, but like I said, there certainly are. They're being utilized much more often now. Yeah.
Along with that, because I know both schools ran the programs like the Meals to Go programs, and so connecting more with the community during the time that we were remote, was that something that was helpful in trying to help the students and the families?
Yeah, I think that it certainly helped kind of bridge some of that social isolation, because it got people out of their houses. It got people interacting with someone, even if it was just to, through the car door, say thanks so much and grab their lunch and go. I think that any kind of interpersonal communication is positive, and so I think it's been helpful to have that, and for families to know that the school will always be there for them.
Looking at education going forward now, there's going to be a shift in like how you're going to have to staff the schools going forward, or how you're going to have to think about mental health as an overall blanket, because I'm thinking it's going to get a lot more of a higher demand going forward.
I hope so.
If my school committee is listening, certainly advocate for more funding for, you can never have too many school adjustment counselors. I think every school should have a behaviorist. Every school should have a bridge or a bright program. There's no shortage of resources available to schools. It's just a matter of, prioritizing them when it comes to budget season and advocating for that support with our communities.
I do think that we're going to be seeing the effects of this for quite some time, though. I 100% agree with that sentiment. I think that for a long time, that kind of long-term chronic stress that kids were under is going to kind of show its effects, as well as any potential grief due to, loss within the family. So I think there'll be a lot of things that we'll be seeing for a while. So I do think that counseling services are going to be in high demand. So whatever we could develop to be able to better support students would be amazing, because even the outpatient providers at this point are having, wait lists, and there's awful. Just kind of not enough services anywhere. So I think, that's a community-wide problem, honestly.
It's been a huge problem that we've faced this past year, plus some, where we have parents that want to get their students into outpatient counseling, and everyone knows that it would be beneficial, but there's just nothing available for them. Or even students who are really struggling, where we feel as though they might need a higher level of care, and they don't have an inpatient bed, or they don't have a partial program availability for them within the entire South Shore. And so I feel like that has been a huge hurdle that we are facing right now.
I feel fortunate that we do work in communities where the school committees are aware of the need, and they are constantly trying to find revenue sources to help support our school communities. I feel very fortunate that we have 2 adjustment counselors at the high school. I think it's rare. We have a Compass program, which is similar to the Bridge program that Dawn runs. It's staffed a little differently. So as Michaela said, we're always looking for more funding so I can really staff our Compass program a little differently. We have begun explorations of different course pathways for our students. We're looking to bring different kind of programming into students that isn't necessarily traditionally sitting down at a desk 54 minutes in a traditional sense, but more hands-on opportunities for our students. I know Silverlake has those opportunities because of the nature of their school. We're looking at those as we speak. I was in a meeting this week at the district-wide level, trying to do that. So try to attack students' education and their learning profiles from a different perspective.
I have to think something like that must also energize, as you're dealing with like the anxiety and the mental health issues. There must be a little bit of an energy that builds up with that when the students see, oh, this is kind of fun. It kind of balances out that need for support because the classrooms are changing. Do you see that's going to have moving forward as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think that when students are happy and engaged and feel as though what they're learning is something that will impact the rest of their life, they're more willing to put in that extra step or the hard work to get the good grade or to do well on the project. So that way they aren't feeling as anxious or depressed because they're engaged and they're happy to be doing that.
It's like that's normal anxiety of school.
Right. Yes.
Getting the grades, and whatever pathway you choose. I know with the CTTE programs, giving them experiences to find alternative ways after school to be engaged and to continue their education. And I think you have Project Lead the Way.
That's the middle school we have.
The middle school,
right?
Which is, those are great programs that offer a little bit different work in the classrooms.
Tremendous opportunities for our students, yeah.
So that's positive. As we look towards the now, what are ways that people can get resources from you all, for whatever help that they need, whether it be mental or, food insecurity or anything that, where can they go to get help that you usually offer for them?
Our district website, our school website has a variety of resources there. And like I said before, the mechanisms by which they can communicate with the school, whether it is me, whether it is Rachel, whether it's a guidance counselor, everyone in our school is well aware of how we can direct students and their families to whatever resources that it is that they need. We have a couple of charity opportunities within our town. We're talking just this morning, now that the holiday season is ramping up, we have a variety of organizations within the town of Pembroke whose sole purpose is to help families in need around the holidays. We have connections with those community members. So our student support team meets weekly, and at this time we start ramping up with, soliciting names of families that we know could benefit from these programs. The student organizations within our school that do a lot of fundraising opportunities. Our student council just hosted a trunk or treat, for instance, around Halloween. The proceeds to that, the advisor just cut 2 checks for $650 each to different food pantries in our community. So there are lots of avenues for that to happen, and I would just encourage any parent or any family listening right now to contact the school, contact our guidance office, our adjustment counselor office, contact me, and we certainly can get folks funneled in the right direction.
Okay, great.
For our Silverlake family, it's the same. If they're looking to speak to someone to seek support or to seek help, a guidance counselor or any member of the administration team is a perfect place to start. But if they're not at that comfort level yet, our district and school website have a whole host of information for them.
And this is where we're going to leave it for now. I want to thank you all for joining me, Marc and Rachel and Dawn and Michaela. It's been a great discussion about the effects of the pandemic and other stressors on our students' mental health and the resources that we all have available. This has been Can We Talk, a production of the local scene of PAC TV. I'm Melissa Matinzi, and thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. We are grateful for your attention. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe to the local scene here and share everywhere. Thank you, friends.